Okay, Programming 11, we're taking a look, and again, this is an optional video for the project, but we're going to take a look at layers. So I just want to show you how this project works without layers, and then we'll switch over to see the difference with how I put in these layer things. So right now I can draw squiggles and I can draw circles, but the circles, build up because as I draw them, I can't clear the screen or my squiggles will go away. That's the big problem. So here's the story of how I was doing the project. As you can imagine, let's take a look at something like mouse dragged, right? So, if I am currently using the Squiggle tool, and this is just an int I've made to keep track of what tool I'm using, I'm going to draw lines based on where the mouse is. This is kind of the same as what we've been doing before. Hey, but if the current tool is the circle tool, well, I'm going to draw circles. But just keep drawing the circles and the lines on the same space. There's no way to clear these. So, not so good, right? Like, I don't like, because we get those circles piling up. So here's another way to do it. I'm going to introduce you to the PGraphics object. I'll slide over here to show you these things. I'll try and zoom in. Hopefully I can do this. Here we go. Yay! So check it out. This is a PGraphics object. And you can think of a PGraphics object as just a layer which you can draw to separately from other layers. So, you could think of this as, a transparent piece of paper, like a sheet of plastic or something that you can draw to, and you can then layer these on top of each other to create sort of a finished product. And what's going to be great is that, we'll draw lines to the canvas, and eventually circles will get onto the canvas as well. But as we're sort of clicking and dragging the circle tool, we'll draw to a separate layer, the preview layer, which we can be clearing as we go. I also put the toolbar on a separate layer. It's not absolutely necessary for this, what exactly we're doing in this video, but it just kind of shows you that you can make separate layers and you could then put, a window that's draggable, or the toolbar that's draggable and move around if it's on a separate layer as opposed to, if it's all put onto one layer. So this is going to be a couple of things you need to do for this. So first of all, you have to, create these layers, these PGraphics objects. And these are actually objects, which is a special kind of variable. They're different than ints. For example, like a P image. Some of you have loaded P images and probably are doing so in this project with things like the stamp tool as well. So a P image is another example of a object type variable. And these variables store more complicated things than just like a number. Or a value. They store a thing that has actions that it can take, and they're much more sophisticated. So we have to do a little bit more work to get them going. So once I've declared my PGraphics objects, check it out. In my setup, I'm just going to clarify. Well, I'm typing apparently when I start my video. Here's my setup. Check it out. I am doing this stuff here where I'm instantiating these different layers. So basically, I'm just saying, hey, my canvas, I'm going to create a graphics layer. It's going to be 800 by 600. That's the same as my size. I think I probably should make this 800 by 600 as well if I want it to be like draggable. So I'll put it to 800. I think that's going to be fine. So yeah, so you just create these different layers. That's absolutely essential to do before you use them. If you don't do this step and you try to use the layers, you'll get what's called a null pointer exception. Basically, it means the PGraphics layer hasn't been created yet. And if you try to use it before it's created, well, you can imagine that might cause some problems. Okay, so that's the beginning here. And then let me zoom out. I'm going to take us to for example, the draw function. You can see that we are drawing to a specific layer. So for example, we're going to draw the toolbar, and I'm going to not just say stroke and fill and rect to draw my toolbar. I'm going to start by saying the name of the layer and then dot begin draw. And then later on, I'm going to say that layer dot end draw. And then you can start doing things like toolbar dot stroke, toolbar.fill, toolbar.rect. That means you're going to be drawing to the toolbar layer. That's really important to understand, that if we've created these different PGraphics objects as layers, we have to choose which one we draw to. We can still say stroke and fill without anything. It'll be drawn to the default layer, but that's sort of the antithesis of what we're trying to do. So we're going to try to choose the layer we want to draw to. You'll notice that tactile button, that's a function I've created for what kind of buttons I want to draw. That doesn't say toolbar.tactile button, But within tactile button, I'll just scroll on down to tactile button. I'm saying toolbar.stroke, toolbar.fill, toolbar.rect, toolbar.image. I don't know, I can't seem to click on things. Toolbar.image, right? I'm still saying toolbar dot. You'll notice I don't have a begin and end here, but that's okay because I'm calling these functions inside of where I said toolbar.begin and toolbar.end. I'll talk more about that tactile button function later on. I think it's a nice dry piece of code that you might want to use. So anyways, this is sort of the basic setup. How do I get the circles and stuff to work? So again, this is similar. So when I am dragging the mouse, this is void mouse dragged. This function gets called when I'm clicking and moving the mouse. I have clicked and I'm moving. Then what I'm doing is, for the squiggle tool, notice that if my current tool I've selected is a squiggle tool, then I'm drawing to the canvas layer. Canvas.begin, stroke, stroke weight, line, all relation to the canvas. And then I canvas.end draw. But if I'm clicking and dragging the circle tool, I'm going to draw to the preview layer, preview.begin. And this is important here. I am clearing the screen every time. You can't just say background to clear the screen because that's going to overlap the canvas. So preview.clear basically deletes all the pixels that have been added to that PGraphics object, to that layer. It wipes it clean. So every frame I want to wipe it clean as I'm clicking and dragging so the previous circles don't pile up. But because I'm doing that to a separate layer, see where I'm going here? The canvas doesn't get cleared. So all those squiggly lines get preserved and any other previous drawings I've done. So the preview works out very nicely for you to draw to the preview. Eventually, however, I do have to draw the circle to the canvas when I let go of the mouse. So that's in mouse released. You'll notice that if I release the mouse, this is void mouse released. It's a function that automatically gets called when you let go of the mouse. Notice that at this moment here, then I am drawing to the canvas. So that I release the mouse when I'm happy with my circle, and it will put that circle, whatever my leftover parts were, to the canvas. So there you go. That's the story. Let's see. I should also mention, really importantly, that that's not the end of the story. We also need to draw our layers. They don't automatically get drawn. So I'm going to go back to my draw function. Check it out. Here's my draw function. And I'm going to just scroll up. And you can see right here that this is a very important end to my draw function. In addition to drawing my toolbars and drawing to my layers, I must intentionally draw my layers. So I do a background 255 that kind of clears the background, and then I do canvas. And canvas as a PGraphics object is really just an image in some ways. It's just an array of pixels. So it works very well to use the image function to draw it. So I draw my canvas to the screen, however it is looking, and I draw my preview layer on top of that, and then I draw my toolbar layer on top of that. You actually have to choose the layers that you draw. So that's fantastic and a really useful way to do things. I think that there's a little bit more information that you might appreciate to understand how I'm clicking and dragging the circle. So if you're not 100% sure how that's working, I'll just mention that the last thing I'll say is, for mouse pressed, notice that when I click the mouse press gets called when the mouse goes down. And at that moment, I remember my X and Y coordinate of the mouse. And then as I'm dragging the mouse, if it's circle tool, then I will constantly be drawing that ellipse, and it will be centered at, it's not exactly centered, it'll be positioned at that initial X and Y, and that won't reset until I let go and click again. And then I'm just subtracting from initial X and initial Y, or subtracting initial X and initial Y from the mouse's current position to get the size of the circle. You might think, wait, ellipses don't work that way. That's supposed to be the center, and that's true, but I did switch ellipse mode to corner. So ellipse mode basically changes where the center of the center of the ellipse is. So I've chosen to make it corner, and then I put it back to center later on. So that's the story there. And that's how I get the ellipse to draw. And you could do a similar technique to draw lines. So when you click, you sort of anchor the first part, and as you drag, the line kind of spreads out wherever the mouse goes. And then when you let go, it'll eventually put that on the canvas layer and that's programmed in the mouse released function here. So where you actually draw the final thing. It's basically the same code here, repeated. I'd actually like to turn this, like this code here is pretty much the same in the mouse released as this code that's in the mouse dragged. You could turn that into a function and not repeat yourself there. I chose not to do that. I think it makes it a little more clear that the same thing is going on in two different places, but I'd love to make that into a function and just send it the layer that you need to draw to. But that's, you know, if you want to, you can do that. Anyways, folks, I hope that made sense, and I hope that's a useful technique for you. I think I'll do one more video in this like kind of advanced technique series where you can look into my buttons a little bit more, and I can show you that code. Okay, so thanks so much, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this and excited to build this into your project. Thanks, everybody.